So the damage control train continues when it comes to Snow White 2025, given that there's a lot of problems not just between Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot, but also Disney CEO Bob Iger and the board of directors. We know that there's a lot of division there over, of course, the marketing campaign for Snow White. It's not really working well for them in the end because all pre-ticket sales, as we speak right now, a lot of theaters are just flat out empty. A lot of the most popular theaters out there in specific states are just not working for the Disney company at all, period. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. Now, Rachel Zegler is on yet another phase of the damage control train when it comes to Snow White, and we all know exactly why. They will do anything, they will say anything to save this movie. We know that there are a lot of critics out there that are shilling for the film. That's just to be expected. Until that review embargo comes in, you're going to see a lot of things about this movie when it comes to how people are actually seeing this, what it's actually being perceived as, and we already know that the test screenings really did not work out well for Disney, and so they are already projecting this to actually perform very much less than any of their previous projects in 2023, which was known as the flop era of Disney, where they had a lot of problems with movies and television programs, etc. Now, going into Rachel Zegler here with her overall stance on Snow White 2025, this is where it gets even worse, because she actually goes on to do damage control, and it is not helping Disney in the least. If anything, it is only hurting them even more, and I'm sure that at this point, there's really not going to be any turning around for Snow White 25. Let's get into this. Now, with the Snow White backlash clearly not resolving for the Walt Disney Company and the Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot drama only making it worse, one major development that is now going on involves more to do with Rachel Zegler getting involved in more damage control related to the film and had yet another temper tantrum over both the critics and the backlash. Zegler delivered the following: I think the criticism is just blown out of proportion, and a lot of it is coming from one side of the country that obviously holds different political views. But what I find to be completely offensive are those that reject a new spin on a Disney princess. Yes, we are breaking away from source material, and it's something that we had to do to provide some common sense to why Snow White is called Snow White. She should never be, in any circumstance, be called that based on the tone of her skin. I always thought that could have been improved, and Greta Gerwig did an excellent job with that. We wanted to focus on a backstory where Snow White survives a snowstorm, and that's how her parents named her Snow White. I think when you have a character named after the color of her skin, it can be a soulless feature for the character's development. You don't have to go by the original tales, by what Disney did in 1937 anymore, because it's just not that time. We also didn't have to go by the Brothers Grimm tales from so many years ago. It's just not necessary. You don't always have to respect source material to create a good story and an engaging character like Snow White that is embedded in pop culture. We have all these Disney princesses that are not named after their appearance, and I always thought that should have been changed with Snow White, and I'm just so glad that we were able to make that change. Of course, we knew going into that we would be dealing with the same loud, opinionated minority that would have an issue with that, and just have to ignore those people. You just have to ignore those people that claim to be longtime Disney fans. If you are a true Disney fan, I think you will support the appearance and the backstory changes to a character like this no matter what, and you will see in the film just how much better it works for Snow White adopting that name, Snow White, based on what happened to her during her childhood. Now guys, before I move on about this, basically she is yet again confirming that it is going to be an element in the film, that's how she gets that name, is that Snow White survives a blizzard, basically, and that's how she's basically given that overall name by her parents. It has nothing to do with how the Brothers Grimm set it up, and how 1937's Snow White movie by Disney also adopted the Brothers Grimm tale. They are shifting away from both of those, and they are focusing on something completely new. And this is exactly how they kind of fit in that storyline of who's the fairest of them all. That's also going to be taken in a different context. We already know that there's a lot of issues with that as well between Rachel and Gal. The creators behind the film, such as director Mark Webb and writer Greta Gerwig, they all wanted these changes. They were all in full support of these changes. In fact, it all originated from Greta Gerwig having all these different meetings with the Disney executives to actually apply that concept to Snow White and those origin changes. And it just makes you, think to yourself, why would you want to do that if you know it's going to create backlash? I mean, Zegler's saying it right there, that they all expected the backlash from the same quote-unquote vocal minority, when in reality it's not a minority, it is a majority. You have a lot of these Disney fans even calling out Disney for what they're doing. You have a lot of families out there that once supported Disney that are now no longer supporting Disney because of all this nonsense, all this ideology, just getting thrown into the first act of the film especially, and all these agenda-driven concepts that are just going to backfire on Bob Iger. There's no doubt about that. But continuing on here, she goes on to conclude, it just outperforms what was done in 37 and the Brothers Grimm. I can only hope that common sense reaches the critics that will have an issue with everything, because what Greta Gerwig did with this film, and she is a proud feminist to begin with, what she did is so beneficial to the character that I think easily we will mark this film down as a masterpiece. I think there comes a time when you have to just disregard longtime loyal fans that can't let go of things. You can't just stay in the past. You can't just keep redoing the same thing over and over. This is a film about Snow White, a story about a powerful woman who aims to save society by taking back her kingdom that her father once lost. I think it is going to be educational for the public when seeing this film. So that's another pointer, guys, I want to bring up, is that you have a lot of actors and actresses, I like to call them activists, when it comes to all of these, things that they bring up. The fact that she has to keep bringing up the fact that this movie is about saving society, that basically this movie is going to be an educational piece. Look, families are not going to see Snow White to be educated, they are going to be entertained. Alright, they don't want to see a movie to be educated unless it's perhaps, a period piece. Other than that, people want to go watch something for, whether it's for entertainment, whether it's for having a fun time and just letting go of reality for a while. And this is exactly why the core plot of the film is just not going to work for this movie. The fact that they're obviously throwing in their ideology, it's the typical Disney message that always backfires on Bob Iger. It always backfires on the many Disney executives that push all of this nonsense. And this is exactly why you have this major turn of the tide by the general public waking up to everything now and really just calling out everything by all these different Hollywood studios, whether it's Disney, whether it's WB and what they did before in the past, also when it comes down to HBO and what they're currently doing with the Harry Potter series. Breaking from source material is never a good thing when you have a very dedicated fan base, whether it's of course for a major franchise or for a popular character like Snow White. It's not going to work in the long run. So, again, like I said before, this damage control, I think, is only creating more damage than good. And it's really just going to hurt more ticket sales, I think, when it comes to the Walt Disney Company. But overall, I would like to hear what everyone has to say about all of this below in the comments. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. And I will catch you guys later.